pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Tim.
Welcome.
First thing is the tax abatement, Philip and Judy Tremblay. Questions? No questions, make a motion to approve tax abatement.
Second.
$20,370 in valuation. $356.48 tax dollars for the 2020-2021 tax year.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor? Next is 706-A, request for information. I think everybody got a sheet on that.
Yep.
Discuss a little bit.
Put those on each of your places. The list was put together by Paul, Corporate Valuations, and Spearhead Valuations. It has Town and J letterhead on it. So it's the request for information that they'll use to put together the assessment for the April 1st, 2021 assessment date. Also talking with Corporate Valuations, they've updated the assessment every year for $12,500, and they're willing to do that again this year for that price. We did discuss having them come out because last year we didn't have, I think maybe it was 3 years ago they did a site visit. So having them do that again this year just because of all the changes at the mill, and that would be an additional $500 to $7,500, depending on how much it costs them to fly out, that type of thing.
So basically it's two steps. We gotta make a motion, request for information.
To approve the request, yeah?
And then the agreement with CPI.
Correct.
So moved on the first part of it.
Motion to sign the request for information.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
I'm going to keep you guys signing them all night tonight.
Yeah.
You don't really have to sign all those, I just like that.
Oh, just like to scare us.
Right, that's what I did to Terry. I said, you guys are actually only the 3 green tabs, so it's not as bad. But Lisa and Rhonda get the rest of them.
What's the second part of your request?
The agreement with CBI.
To approve having corporate valuations update the assessment like they've been doing the last couple of years. No,
No.
it's not in the packet. It was just,
Oh,
that was the information, is that they'll do it again for 12,500, and then the additional cost if they do come out and do a site visit.
okay, so move.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Second, so are they gonna come visit or not come visit?
I believe that they are.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
to me,
it
I
would
don't
be
think-
our
I
intent that
think
they are.
Right.
We'll have to make those arrangements with the mills.
To me, especially with
That's,
the situation we had over there, I think it'd be a good idea
Right.
to have them come look at it.
Right.
Now we'll go into the select board agenda. Minutes. March 8th, question.
Move approval of the March 8th minutes.
Second,
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor? Any old business?
The Church Street sidewalks, I know that had, in the minutes, it had reflected that there was going to do just the north side, but since then, we've gotten a petition from individuals living on the south side who said they'd like to have that sidewalk continued. So I just want to make sure that's part of the minutes so that we'll be able to perhaps revisit that if we may at a later date if we wish. Or maybe there's some new information that's come to light that I'm not aware of.
Are you saying the petition is for both sides?
No, it's for the side that was proposed to be eliminated, which would be the south side.
Now, the two people I talked with both wanted it on the park side. And they said one of them had said he signed the petition. He just wanted to make sure there was going to be one.
And I think there was,
This is what, it was in the basket. It's gone around,
Yeah.
I believe.
Yeah.
Everybody's.
yeah. Well, I believe all those.
That's why we saw it, was in the
Yeah.
basket.
Okay. I just wanted the board to be aware that all those people that signed, I believe, are living on the south side. And those are the ones who were requesting that it not.
The person I talked with actually lived on the south side. He was out walking his dog.
Yeah.
Then he
And
was-
there's how many on that petition on the south side?
I-
15 or 16 to 1,
There's 14.
14?
There's a couple of them that I'm not sure that, unless they've recently moved there, they used to live on 140, but maybe they sold
That's
their
true.
house.
They live there on Church Street now, in the apartment building.
Oh, really?
Yes,
Huh.
yeah.
Okay.
Because the individual who circulated the petition lives on that side of the street and went door to door to talk to individuals to see if they'd be willing to sign.
But they weren't living there, they weren't just visiting?
They live there.
Oh,
They don't own the building, they're renting.
yeah,
They're tenants.
yeah.
I don't know what say they may have in it, but
You know, if you go down that street, from Otis Street down, I believe you'll only see a sidewalk on one side, all the way. Might switch from left to right, but I don't think any of them have two way up from there. But that's my feelings, I'm not sure.
Well, I may be not understanding it right, but I didn't think we were gonna take it out anyway. I just don't think we were gonna rebuild it to the ADA specs that we were putting on the north side.
So when we had talked about it, and I don't think that there was really any decision made at this point, but we had talked about either or kind of giving the homeowners the option of what they want done in front of their house. If they want to have the tar taken up and have it grassed and seeded, then that could happen. If they want to have it left, it could be left, but the town wouldn't be maintaining it, wouldn't be plowing it anymore, keeping it cleaned off. So
Right.
they could have that option. And I had spoken to one of the gentlemen who's on the list who had said he was interested in just keeping it in front of his house because then when the snow gets plowed, it would go onto the sidewalk instead of going, or the old sidewalk instead of going onto his lawn. So he was in favor of keeping it just, but knowing that the town was basically just abandoning it in its place. But I think we had kind of talked that we let the homeowners decide what they wanted done, but we hadn't really got that far because we're not into the project yet, so.
Right.
Right, well, that's the reason why they wanted to bring it to your attention before it gets into the project stage, and whatever's done is done, and then it may be too late for them to remedy the situation if they wish to have something differently done.
Right, which I think is why the board had tabled it for 2 weeks, was to try to get input. We put it out there, you know, on Facebook, in the newspaper, on our website. It was out everywhere, and we didn't get any comments.
But there was,
And then the board decided last meeting
that's right,
to eliminate
and
it.
that's what I was referring to, was the board's decision in the minutes of March 8th, which we just approved. It says in there that it's only going to build one sidewalk. And I just wanted the board to be aware that there's a petition circulated in the town that would like to have both sidewalks maintained. Now, whether or not you want to plow them in the winter, that's up to the residents, I would guess.
I think if you have a sidewalk, you have to keep it clear to the winter.
I do too. Yeah. Yeah.
So, anyway, I just bring it to your attention.
Anything else? Review of the financial audit 2020.
You give an introduction? All me?
So Ron Smith is here. He's our auditor, R.H.R. Smith. He can give you an overview. He can answer questions for you, however you'd like to handle the process, or if you have a deal ready to go.
Sure. I'm Ron Smith. We do like a lot of municipalities, like over a third of them in the state, you know, including probably everybody around here. So we know a lot about who you are, what you are. All we do is live in the world of government. And I would probably say the town of Jay is in the best financial shape that's been in our relationship. And keep on the good work. I'm all done. Any questions? Goodbye. See ya. So seriously, I mean, that's true. I mean, I think that, I think that you have understood your craft going back from day one of our relationship to where we're at right now. This town's done a lot of right things, you know, and probably some things that you could have some do-overs too. We all have those, but the world of government, kind of like the land where you are landed today, you know, to deal with whatever that phone is that's going to ring on the other end, you know, per day. You know, you've put yourself in a great financial position to do that. And the best way I could say this too is doing, you know, not only over a third of all the municipalities in the state, you need to. Because there's one thing that separates Jay from probably the rest of the state of Maine, except maybe a handful now of probably 5 to 10, is a paper. And that is a very unique, very great relationship. I'm sure they've been a great neighbor for the town. They've really put you to where you're at here today, and vice versa. That relationship has been give and take, and that's really what it's needed to be to make a relationship like that work. But someday that may not be there. And I think that while that's a possibility, we all hope that doesn't ever happen. You've put yourself in a financial position to really kind of, you know, allow yourself the opportunity to step back and do what's in the best interest of a mill withdrawal, you know, of a mill transition plan, whatever that looks like. The town of Jay has really put itself in a good financial position. And I can say that because Bucksport went through the same thing about 5 years ago, and they were done with that doorstep too. I can go to Rumford, I can go to Madawaska, I can go to East Millinocket, I can go to a lot of places. And that's why I say, the above average financial condition on where you land today is where you need to be to really kind of make and balance that relationship work, you know, and it's worked all these years, and I think you've put yourself in a good position to work with them to make it work for however many more years, you know, there are to go, you know, is the best way I can say it. In addition to that, you know, you've got about $2 million plus So your carryover balance is about $6.7 million in 2020, as opposed to about $6 million in 2019, largely in part to $200,000 of favorable revenues coming in over budget. I think revenue sharing was the big one. That was $100,000, excise taxes another 25 or 30, and then you returned about $500,000 back to the bottom line in expenses for various budgeted departments that you reappropriated and recycled the next year, like you've always done. And that's just good fiscal management for sure, because it doesn't work out that way, you know, all the time. You know, so that added $700,000 to your bottom line. So a couple of things. You've got about $2 million in reserves. One of the big ones is the environmental reserve that you have with the mill, and that relationship that, you know, to kind of set that thing in motion, established it. I think it pays for some certain town expenses that you hardly use, you know, really now that whole agreement is coming to an end. You know, so and maybe there's another agreement on the horizon. I don't know, you know, but when there is, certainly you put yourself in a good position, you know, for that as well. You've got money set aside for various, like your sewer treatment plant reserve, you know, it's like $400,000. You've got $200,000, seems like forever, squirreled away to things like highway, fire, you know, things like that. Just various pieces of your plan, you know, for the town, and that's good plan. You know, so when that day comes when you've got to do a revow, you know, for the town for taxes, you've got money put away, $180,000 put away for exactly that intent. So the town's had some good foresight, you know, while it's had the good neighbors, you know, out there, while it's had the ability to kind of look in the mirror and look down the road and say, you know, we need to have a plan. The town's had a plan. You know, I would say that plan is always, any plan that can't change is a bad plan. And I think that's one thing that your town's been able to do is change its plan. You have piled, and I know you're a sewer person, you know, is here tonight, so you have put a boatload of money in the past few years, and everybody around here has put a boatload of money, you know, in Route 4, you know, and upgrading, you know, the infrastructure in your town, wastewater being one of them, water being another one. And where am I going with that? Maybe it's time to look at that sewer treatment reserve and other sewer reserves. As Shiloh and I have talked about North J Water and an increase that just went through that town. It doesn't take long for that phone to ring and realize that there could be a price tag expected with a water main or a sewer main or anything like that. You just invested a lot of money into that. And I think that maybe it's time to get together with your superintendent and manager and probably look at that plan, because if there's one thing that I would say that's noticeable this year because of the sizable investment you've made in sewer, it's flopped your equity. You've gone from kind of like an operating equity, you know, a balance of operating equity into investment in property to way investment in property now of equity. Your equity position is totally flopped by the investment that you've made in your upgrade of $3-4 million. You know, in that project. That's not the way it did. So that's not the way it used to be. So when you spent that money, rightfully so, to do that upgrade, well, guess what? As soon as you did that upgrade, to me, it's like driving a car off a parking lot that doesn't gain value. You know, it may not lose value depending on what car it is. But in this case, you definitely flopped the equity from operating to infrastructure and fixed assets. So maybe you ought to look at how much money and how you put your money away to take care of that down the road again, you know, and look at that. And I'd say that that's probably one thing that's on your table right now is to look at that, you know, literally to say, okay, is $400,000 enough for a treatment plant? You know, our depreciation's $100,000 a year, about to go up by 1.5 times to $250, you know, a year now. Maybe we should start putting some money away for that, you know, for down the road for the next upgrade or the next renovation, you know, that we do. And I think that's probably one area that I would definitely say to work with Mark on, you know, just because of the significant investment you made this past year. And I think it was the right move to do, but I think with that move comes maybe a change of plan. Hey, we put a lot of money, you know, into this thing. Maybe we need to reevaluate. Maybe we got to put some more money away or set some money aside for the time down the road when we've got to maintain this big investment that we just made. And I'd probably say that's the biggest thing that I think is the conversation piece. You know, that I take out with 20, is that significant? You know, money that you made into wastewater. You know, really protecting it. you know, going forward and doing some, again, those prudent things, you know, that you've always done, you know, and virtually looking in the mirror. And I'm confident that that's happening now. I'm just not confident that I'm up to where I need to be on where those conversations are. But I'm sure you all are, and I'm sure that there's some work that probably needs to be done, following the heels of. It's like take a deep breath. Ooh, deep breath, man. We did it. You know, it's coming to an end. We've done it. I think you're voting on something tonight, like permanent financing, right, for the project. So it's like take a deep breath, and it's like, okay, deep breath's over. What do we do? Where do we go from here? Is where I'm at right now. So I think looking in that mirror, you know, and you know, just kind of reevaluating that, you know, and your money and where it sits right now, I think some more money is going to need to be redirected to wastewater as well. So to complement that infrastructure. So I'd say that probably financially hits just about everything that I came here to talk about, you know, for the town of Jay. So probably more than you guys want to hear. Pretty hard to take 100 pages and like condense it into a 10-minute conversation.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Anybody?
This town, you've got, so I've got a relationship with this town, and I'm proud of it. You know, you've got some people sitting in chairs, you know, Shiloh, Lisa, Mark, your public works, you've got some institutional knowledge here, and it shows. You know, because the conversations don't always roll this way, you know, when I get out there. Go on my usually like year-long tour, you know, after doing 140 municipalities, 150, however many, a lot. You know, it doesn't roll that way all the time. And like I said, and it didn't roll that way at first jail, well, many moons ago, it didn't roll that way. And there's just been a lot of work and a lot of that institutional, you know, knowledge that exists here, has really paved the way for a conversation like this.
Very good.
So I'm here to answer any question anybody has. You know, I'm here to answer whatever you all may have for questions.
Yeah.
More of a technical aspect, Ron, and I know we could get into the weeds a lot in this because there are a number of pages, and I'll be honest with you, I don't know what all this means. For example, what is deferred outflow resources?
So a couple of things. Usually when you have things like pensions and retirement and things like that, those deferred outflows means that a number that could change by the day depending on who's employed, who's part of your retirement. I'm just giving you an example. Anything that is deferred means it's subsequent to a timing difference to a later date. That's what that is. There's some provisions in there that we make for retirement. There's some provisions that we make for taxes. There's a lot of deferrals that go on in this document. Why? Because of the timing and the impact, you know, at a later date on some of the math in these documents. So that's what the deferred inflows or outflows. But just to let you know, we're not actuaries, but we're provided this math by actuaries, by the state of Maine retirement system to give us the math for the plan, you know, that you're in. So that's the deferred outflows. They actually give us that information.
Okay, great. Table 2, it suggests that we got a change in net assets or net position. And like I say, I'm not that knowledgeable about it, but that's why I'm asking the question. What caused a spike in the general government expenditures on page 8? It was budgeted, I think, of $1,639,860, and then it's
depreciation. So that's like a non-budgeted number, Gary. And actually, I always tell people look in the back and stack forward. But this, because you typically will have, if my memory serves me, like an $11 million budget, $10.8 million. Yeah. So the difference there is all the things that are non-budgeted but are required for us to make provisions in the financial statement so that they're generally accepted, you know, with principles in the United States of America. So that's the difference there. You can say, well, holy cow, it's 11.6 or, you know, 11.8. You know, we don't have a budget like that. It's because we include everything, including depreciation and other things that you don't budget for.
Okay, great.
There's actually a table in the back that'll give you that math number.
I probably should have started, like you said, in the back and worked my way to the front.
I'll tell you, like they don't work the way that they used to. And I always tell people, stack in the back, work your way to the front.
There was some acronyms in there. I was reading, going along, and I'm saying, what is that? Yeah. What is that? What is
you're going to see a lot of new acronyms.
OPEB, OP, what is OPEB? What does that mean?
Guarantee you that. A lot of new acronyms.
And so the, on page 9 it says the sewer fund, a proprietary fund, had a deficit net position for the current year, $44,034. Again, is that talking about deferred expenses?
Well, that's going to the point where I told you that the equity flipped in 2020 when you invested $3 million into your sewer project. It flipped the whole equity position because it now went from operating to tying up more money into infrastructure. So that's the big reason why, it went down. There is nothing alarming in there, that would say the sky is falling here in J.
Yeah.
You've got some skies falling in this state, but not here in J. And the only thing that I would just add for the caution to the wind is you just invested a significant amount of money. Just look at that whole, future infrastructure plan that you have with wastewater, because I don't think that there's enough money being thrown at that now. I think we got to throw more money at that. But that you're seeing the residual of the equity position starting to flip because of that.
So can you explain to me the largest decreases in revenues were in operating grants, charges for services, and property taxes?
So your property tax collection was down a little bit, but it was more than made up by your increase in revenue. So I'm going to bring you to a page of this document if you're looking at it. And I'm going to bring you to page, just bear with me, I'm going to bring you to page 72. That'll give you the whole litany of what went down. And the biggest one went down is property taxes by a grand total of $18,000. More than made up by excise tax and revenue sharing expense. So there's your whole revenue projections to where you actually landed on June 30, 2020.
Well, as you can see, Ron, I didn't get through the entire physical.
There'll be a quiz later.
That's what I was afraid of.
If there's any other further questions that anybody here has, just let me know, let Shiloh know, Lisa know, and by all means, they know where to find me, I'm sure of that.
Yeah, well, I didn't want to take up all the board's time and the general public's time with these questions because a lot of them are just mundane questions that need some understanding. I just didn't understand what some of these terms mean. And like you say, it's happening all the time. Changes are occurring here and there, and I just...
So can I go now?
On page 10, what caused the increase in the infrastructure?
So, I don't have to look at it right now.
The guy with his hand up his back.
Max got the answer?
That's it. Listen, I don't even have to look at that page. Their final answer on that one. Final answer.
I don't mean to go through this page by page, but there was a few that I thought, and because you brought up the bit about the pension, that's liability in here, right?
Yeah, this is about so if everybody, which is it's basically government pays as they go. And somebody that had way too much time on their hands, about 4 or 5 years ago, one of our boards said, that's kind of real money down the road, and we probably ought to, hire an actuary to prognosticate what that is in government. And then the state further came in and said, you know what? Our plan and the funding of our plan looks bad because of the schools and counties and municipalities. So we should pull their piece out so that's in their backyard, and then we'll have our piece to really tell the story. So they came up with these certain governmental accounting standards, that kind of, made us tell the whole pension story. And the best way I can say it, if everybody knew was to retire in the town of Jay on June 30, 2020, you were about $400,000 light paying everybody based on the actual variable valuation. But here's what I also said. We were in the middle of a pandemic, and those investments certainly plummeted from March 1st to June and came all the way back by December 31st. So remember, this is as of June 30th.
Right.
So I'm pretty confident that that's probably not the case now. And you just got caught in that crossfire of the economy just really not being stable, for the first 3 months. But think about it. April, May, June, 3 months, the last 3 months of your fiscal year, right smack dab in a pandemic. So, but that liability is common in the world of government. It's more than common in the world of schools just because of the collective bargaining agreements with the teachers, you know, and just certain other things that apply for them. But it's nothing I'd be alarmed with, Gary. I'm just not. But it's about $400,000 if everybody was retired now, based on everybody retired on June 30th.
Right.
There was not enough money in the plan to pay for everybody's future retirement. So, but that doesn't mean everybody can retire and take all their benefits then either. So it's like I said, somebody had too much time on their hands, said, wow, that's a real problem. We should probably footnote that, you know, and really kind of show the state liability separate from the local liability. And that's the whole purpose of what that does.
So when you talk about other post-employee benefits, you're talking basically
That's
just
non-retirement. That's non-retirement. If you've got like a collective bargaining agreement where...
health insurance?
Exactly. Health insurance, life insurance, dental,
Okay.
usually are the big ones, you know, and the other one that I can think of, you know, would be the conversion, you know, possibly in a union of converting some sick time or vacation time to actual cash. So that's another one that, you know, that's typical in the world of government. But I don't think it's typical as of here.
So I noticed too, throughout the statements, there is often a line or a column designated for business-type activities.
That's your wastewater fund. That's the predominantly your wastewater.
Okay, because that's the only other outside.
We're required to show that because traditionally, it's not paid for, you know, it's supposed to stand by its own, and it's paid for user fees, you know, so that's a traditional business type activity. I think that there's a little bit of a nuance here in J where the debt that you borrowed to do this upgrade is financed by the good faith and credit of the people of the town of J. So you will actually transfer money in to pay for the debt service, the future debt service, you know, from the town and all that, which is going to be subsidized by the ratepayers, you know, eventually, you know, in J, so, which is typically what happens.
So on page 15, it says business-type activity. You're talking about the sewer department. There's a deficit of $148,511. Does this deficit include any abatements that were
Yes, so that would be
given?
everything. And again, what I would probably say to point out about the deficit is the story how you got there, your equity switch. You know, you made such a tremendous investment in 2020, $3 million plus in 2020. And what I would say here is just look at the strength in numbers. Numbers don't lie. Look on page, bear with me, we've gone through 100 pages here now. So look on page 23. Halfway down the page, $3,079,000. That's what you flipped. That's how your equity position flipped. You know, from operational to infrastructure. Right there. That would do it for, I would argue, you know, unless it's a very sizable government, a Portland, South Portland, Westport, Lewiston. You know, somebody's just got a sizable amount of infrastructure. And I'd argue you probably even notice it there. You can't help but to notice it here. You know, when it's to put it into like perspective, that's 6 times your operating wastewater budget, which is why it sticks out and why I'm able to easily say back at the beginning, your equity position is swamped, you know, just because of that single-handedly. You know, not only for wastewater, for the town too. Because it's looked at collectively, you know, at the town. So I just can't look at, you know, town government without looking at wastewater or vice versa.
Right. And we pay for it collectively as a community.
Yeah, you do.
Whether we use it as service or not. So.
Mark's got a question, Gary.
I don't see his hand up.
Finally. Just
Yes, Mark.
Ron, you said $3 million that we put into the infrastructure up there?
Last year.
Okay.
20.
So when you look at it next year, it's going to show the full 4.5.
4.5 next year.
Okay.
Just some of that time, you know, $1.5 million happened now. This year that's not done.
Because this was as of June 30th, 2020.
June 30th.
Okay, thank you.
I don't mean to answer your questions for you, Ron.
Listen, absolutely. Keep on going. Let somebody else ask you questions.
Now, I'm curious, you mentioned earlier that we had a surplus of funds or a reserve of accounts, 3 million or 6.7 million or whatever that figure may be. That money how is that invested? I mean, maybe you may not know, but I mean.
If you look on that, exactly how it's invested. So if you look on page, or you can hold it right now. If you look on page, bear with me.
It's not in blue chip stock, is it?
So if you look on page 36, you've got your money, spread out. And the largest piece, ICS, is a traditional investment company. That is a Bangor Savings. Yeah, you've got Bangor Savings Investment Group investing $5.8 million of your hard-earned money. You know why? Because it's paying a better return than sitting in your checking account. So again, you understand your business, and and at the direction of the town, Lisa, that you've got money into various other vehicles that are available for government that aren't available to us as individuals. And ICS, the Bangor product, is the biggest one, $5.8 million. And you got another $1.5 million sitting in like a sweep account where the money moves overnight from your checking into that account. I don't know what your target balance is there, though. What is it? In your general checking account. So if you have a general checking account target balance of like $25,000, we'll say, typically it's anywhere from 25 to 100. Bangor will move that money overnight into a sweep account. Move it back as you need it. And that's just the best vehicle. That target balance changes all the time. So, but whatever that number is, I'm confident Lisa can give it to you. And whatever's over and above it every night, Bangor moves it into a special investment vehicle.
Right.
So you ask what you're invested in, 98% of your money is invested in governmental investment vehicles, like where I would expect it to be. And liquid too.
I'm glad.
They move all of it. She's well pointed. They're moving it all.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought my attention to page 36 because I had something highlighted there that kind of piqued my interest a little bit. It says in the last paragraph, in the second sentence, the town does not have a formal investment policy that limits investment maturities.
Yeah.
Why? Should we have a policy?
So a couple of things. Here's the problem with that. You don't have a policy, but the state has a statute. So that you abide by that the banks have to. So you fall under that insulation.
Right, so
a lot of times, Gary, what happens is the town will make an attempt, to kind of say, we'd like to make that state statute without exceeding the statute ours. And there may be a contradiction there down the road that you can make yourself vulnerable if something happens to an investment. And trust me, during the pandemic, there were a lot of investments that did perform so well, and you weren't affected. So I think that there's the good news there. But when you take maybe endowments or money that sits idle, and whether it be a nonprofit, a trust, any other type of thing, any other specialized service government that you have, that they've invested in that, if they had an investment policy that may have been a little bit more aggressive than what the state law and statutes allows you to be, without even violating a statute, there could have been problems. Where do I go? Perpetual funds. You don't have many of those here, like endowments or people who left money. Here's $1 million. Take care of it 4A, and this is the type of, I want a flower bed for a mile here, and here's the money to take care of. So whatever the thought, the idea when they leave the town of J money for a specific purpose or a crisis fund. We've seen many municipalities where the donor will leave money for the town of J for the less fortunate people. So whatever that is, if there's discretion at the town to go invest that money, and perhaps the market, it was invested predominantly on the market, they wouldn't have done so well on June 30th because the market went down a lot.
Well, that was one of the reasons why I brought that up, because I recall back in 2008, we had something like a financial crash.
Yeah.
And
2008.
Wasn't it 2008?
Yeah, I'd say that's the last time when they came out with the stimulus too, the whole economy.
Yeah, and so I knew a lot of municipalities had funds invested in the stock market and stuff like that. So that's why the impetus for my question is because I want to make sure, even though we're on good stable ground, that we have a policy in place that we don't put ourselves into a position where something like that could happen again and we become unsolved.
You back on the state statute, the law, which is a pretty solid, policy to do. Not that you can't, rewrite that. I just don't see that being a number one priority here.
Okay.
And Lisa's already said that all your money's invested in invested safely. So it's true, tried, and tested. And like I say, Jay came out once you may not have earned as much money as you did the year before because of the economy, but here's what you didn't do. It was safe and you didn't lose any money.
Yeah. Well, that was one of the main reasons why a lot of people put money in treasury bonds, because it was a guaranteed income, even though it was a far less than what the stock market would have yielded.
Yeah.
It still would have yielded something as opposed to losing great amounts of money. So thank you for the comments.
Any other questions?
I think any other questions I might have of Ron, I can ask of him on the side.
Absolutely.
Whatever. It's nothing.
You're exhausting me, man.
I hadn't heard from you in a long time, and I was hoping I'd see your smiling face here today.
I'm
But
glad you did. I'm glad.
yeah.
Be here.
The only other thing that I have a question about is, and I can't figure out how to ferret it out, is other information, transparent information, like when you contract out for a job, or for example, the sewer department contracted a safety inspector or somebody for that. When you contract, you have it for a fixed price, and you pay that as the services are rendered or what have you. But you don't necessarily pay taxes or withhold Social Security or federal.
I'm not sure if you're...
What's the advantage of paying some of these taxes?
I'm not sure there's a question in there, you know, but here's what I'm sure of. Whatever, I've heard enough to say, that's not within the scope of this audit. But if it's something that you wanted to, typically Lisa or Shiloh will call and say, I need you to look at this, or I need you to look at that, or I need a sounding board here, just shut up, Ron, and listen. You know, if there's something else that's needed to be done, we're more than happy. That definitely isn't in the scope of the financial statement audit that I'm here talking about.
I was just wondering if there was any repercussions for doing that. You know, when you contract with somebody and then you take out taxes and pay their taxes for them and then give them a tax statement at the end of the year.
Not knowing the situation and really, you know, the details, I think it's a conversation, something you guys want me to look at more than that.
All right.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Ron.
It's great being here. Always great.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Be well. And if you've got any other, you know,
Yeah.
find me.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Next, North J Sewer Project, long-term financing and debt service payments. Questions, comments? No questions or comments? Make a motion to convert to permanent long-term financing. Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
We had a brief explanation about why we wanted to do that, did we? Was there something in the miss?
Yeah, there was a
Thinking
reason
about the agenda?
about the level data.
It was
Is that what you
in,
were thinking about?
oh, here it is, on number 4 down here, the explanation as to why.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Then we've got a warrant article that allows us to lapse the overdraft. But we want to bring that for approval from the board, and that way we're all covered all the way around. Any questions, comments? Motions?
Motion to move forward?
Second.
Motion made, and seconded. All those in favor?
Okay, so this is to sign the resolution for the long-term financing, so it's the 3 green tabs that need select board signature.
Thank you, Mark.
Yep. Nothing to it.
That was your job, getting that ready?
Can we authorize the chairman to sign for all of us?
No, sir. Never had time. 32. Make sure.
Long-term finance.
Sure.
Next, the energy efficiency light conversion.
So, we got prices from 3 different vendors, and the replacement cost to replace all of the overhead lights in the town office, the meeting room, and in the police department, as well as the lighting that's over like the sinks and the bathrooms, ranged from $9,800 to $16,300 after the efficiency main credits. So it's more initially, and then you get the credit to offset that. And then we also had 2 of them provided a retrofit option, and those were $7,700 and $10,300. So really, we kind of boiled it down and looked at the lowest replacement cost versus the lower retrofit cost. And in talking with the vendors, the retrofit cost is less initially, but it basically just changes out the bulbs from the ones we have to LED. It changes the tips so you don't use the ballast, but then leaves in place what you have. The problem with it is it's not, in the end, it's not as energy efficient because the bulbs, the way they explained it, the bulbs have a 360-degree shedding of light where you just need it to come down, not necessarily up. And those ones aren't adjustable other than, like if you have 3 lights in there, you take one of them out. Or if you put them on a dimmer switch, but if you put them on the dimmer switch, the cost goes up from there because that's not included in the price. So what we would like to do is go with the replacement fixtures for $9,800, and we're going to try to look at it at year end to be able to take it out of the operating budgets. If not, it would come out of the building capital account.
Yes, Tom.
In that price, did they have a number for disposing of their LED, not the LED, but the ballast and all that stuff out of the lights we have existing?
There was a price in there, but John had said that we could take care of them through our facility, either have them picked up at the town office or picked up at the transfer station.
So both of them had that price in there?
All of them.
Above and beyond?
I believe all of them did.
Okay, but it was above and beyond the 9,800, or was that 9,800 was built into it?
Yeah, I'm not sure. So the 98 may be a little bit less. I think they were like 250 to dispose of them. Most of them were. I can't remember if that one was.
Just want to
in
make
there
sure,
or not,
because I
but
knew
yeah.
some people who ran into it in other
Right.
commercial locations, so.
Right. And so that will cover our interior lighting, and then we'll look at the exterior lighting once the snow's gone, and we can get ladders up to where they'll be looking at it and stuff. But, so it's been quite a process, but that would be our intent if no one has any opposition or questions, right?
No, I mean, it's by our purchasing policy.
Yep, we've got prices and
Yeah,
calls in
yeah,
it.
yeah. And good question, Tom, because you're right, that stuff is expensive to get rid of.
Yeah,
Those
exactly.
old lights.
Did they give us any idea of how long they felt it would take for us to recoup our investment of $9,800 on the savings in electricity?
3.5 years.
See? I always like to know those.
Yep,
So one goes, why did you do that?
right.
Very good. Thank you. Next, notice of public hearing for a planning board appointment. Questions? Motions?
Do you know this individual?
I personally know.
Does he live in Jay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
I mean, he doesn't have to, right? I mean, but
Right, he does, yeah.
he does.
Yep.
We don't know anything about it.
No, that's why we're gonna have public.
I know Rhonda's talked with him. I think he's a contractor or builder. Tom, you might know him. I think he lives out, Dean's Corner area. I think, you know, where the popcorn factory is across the street there.
Yeah.
I don't personally know him, but know where he's located.
Yeah. He'd come in and kind of talk about what there were for volunteer opportunities in the town, and Rhonda had mentioned the planning board, and he left and thought on it a bit, and then came back and said he'd like to be on.
And this is to have public notice,
To have a hearing.
to have a hearing on it,
Need a motion?
so. Yeah.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
It's not an endorsement, it's just a notice. Right?
What's that?
I said, it's not an endorsement, it's just a notice.
Right, correct.
After the notice, and then
Then you vote on it.
we'll go. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Other business? Nothing under other business. Dates, March 24th, SOAR committee meeting at 5 at Livermore Falls Town Office. March 26th, absentee ballots available for town meeting vote. April 5th, county caucus 5 at the Franklin County Courthouse. April 12th, select board meeting 6, right here in the gym. April 13th, planning board meeting at 6, here at the gym. April 26th, select board meeting 6 o'clock, here at the gym. And April 27th, town meeting vote 8 to 8, at the middle school gym. Now we'll be going into executive session.
We'll go into executive session under MRS Title I, Chapter 13, Section 405, Subsection 6D, Union Negotiations, PD.
Motion made and seconded.
Is that a second, Gary?
Yes.
Or were you waving? I
Yeah.
was like, is